welcome everybody to day 2. The students have voted and they want to do a third-person template instead of a first-person template. So to do that, I'm going to launch Unreal Engine 5, and I'm going to go blow up my old project, maybe. Maybe I don't care. I don't know. So it goes. And we're going to create a new third-person template game. And again, make sure you use blueprints, not C++. And you can turn ray tracing on if you want. Maybe I'll do it with ray tracing. I don't know. Could be fun. So summer 2022. Show Explorer, and you can go away. Okay, so I'm deleting my old summer 2022 from yesterday. Goodbye, summer 2022. And now I'm going to make a new one. So I'm going to make games, third person this time. Quality max, starter content on. I'll do ray tracing, why not? And we'll call this the new summer 2022. Boom. Okay, here's blueprints. It's easier to learn third person than make it first person. Yeah, rather than the other way around, because the third person has the assets you need to do AI that has arms and legs in it and stuff like that. I kind of wish you'd just include that in the starter content, like having an animated person seems like useful starter content. It's kind of wild. So, you got it? Okay, cool. Ray tracing's always on, about the whole 3060. Yeah, it's not a matter of your graphics card. It's a matter that the support in Unreal Engine for ray tracing is like 80% of where it needs to be, I think. It's kind of... it works okay. But it is buggy sometimes. Yes, girl?
What if you just had to add in a gun?
How to add in a gun. Yes, that is something we will be doing this this class. Maybe even today. So what we're going to do today is we are going to learn how to program games. So a lot of times I start by teaching people about materials and things like that, and I have 6,000 shaders left to compile. Okay, so let me lecture for a little while. Okay, let me lecture for a little while. Yeah, because that's going to be launching for a while. Yay, ray tracing. Okay, so how do you program a game? Good question. It's very big, very complicated. And the nice thing about the Unreal Engine dealio is IS50A summer 2022, IS50B summer. How to program games. Okay. The nice thing about Unreal Engine is that it makes it pretty easy using these things called blueprints that we kind of looked at a little bit yesterday. Okay, but before we go into how to do that, let me just give you the big high-level idea of how to program a game. So if you've done any programming before, programming games is actually a little bit different. The mindset is different. Game programming is what's called event-driven programming. Okay. So if you were to make a game in like C++, C-Sci40 or something like that, you typically write inside of main or something, and it'll sit there and run in a loop, and it'll wait for the user to like type something. And video games are very different. Like if World of Warcraft paused every time somebody had to type in something, like it would be completely unplayable, right? What happens is that there is a main loop that's always running. And then events happen asynchronously with it. Okay, so the main loop looks kind of like this. So the main loop is going to be doing something like read, from the network or something. It's going to be like do AI. It's going to like do physics. I don't know, like sound or something like that. And then the big thing is that it draws a frame. So in video games, a frame is one picture that appears on the screen. And that's kind of the big upshot of your main loop, is that at the end of it, it will produce a frame. A frame is a picture, like a screenshot. And it needs to do this main loop fast. It needs to be able to loop over and over and over again here. Ideally, we want to do this 60 times a second or better, right? So 60 frames per second is kind of the, sort of target we want to hit. So it's got to do all this stuff very, very quickly. It's got to do it quickly enough that 60 times a second, all the AI and all of the monsters can update. The physics, you throw a ball, the ball moves a little bit, it bounces off a wall, it plays sounds, it stops sounds, and it draws the frame. All of that has to happen in a budget of 1/60th of a second, right? Does that make sense, Ada? Do you know fractions? Yeah. So if you need something to happen 60 times a second, that means you have 1/60th of a second to do all of this stuff, okay? Which works out to like 7 milliseconds. So all of this stuff has to happen in 7 milliseconds, okay? And if it takes longer than that, then your frame rate drops. And it'll drop from 60 frames a second, 30 frames a second, and then below 30, the game's unplayable. So, some games will run at 30 FPS, 30 frames per second. Some will run at 60 frames per second. And that's kind of the range that video games try to shoot for. If you buy a faster video card, obviously you can go up above that limit. My monitor here is a 144 hertz 4K monitor. There are very few games that can get 144 hertz 144 frames per second at 4K resolution at ultra quality settings, but it's there. And I typically run my games at about 90 frames a second because it looks nice. But if you drop below this, then you get into sad face territory. Okay, so when your frame rate drops to like the 20s, like you feel it, and when it drops below like 15, it's unplayable. You start watching a slideshow. Update.
Didn't you just say if it drops below 30 frames per second, then it's unplayable?
To me, below 30 is unplayable. I wouldn't release a game that got below 30. But sometimes when there's a lot of things going on the screen, you can see your everything starts struggling, right? Like if there's in Path of Exile, there's sometimes like 100,000 projectiles on the screen at once. And like my build right now in Path of Exile has about 60 minions running around, causing explosions and taunts and blinds, and there's just absolute chaos on the screen. And when there's that much stuff going on, like the frame rate goes, and maybe that's okay briefly, but if your game routinely gets below 30 frames a second, then it's sad face time. Your game's not playable. Okay. So this is the main loop. But what's this thing about events? Okay, so that's actually where most of your programming takes place, because the engine is going to do this. This is like Unreal Engine. UE5 is going to be doing the physics for you. You're not going to be programming physics in this class. Okay, you're happy about that, Ada? Good. So you're not going to be responsible for. Sound doesn't look very good. Erase that. You're not going to be responsible for like, how do I, buffer set. All that's handled for you by Unreal Engine, right? You don't have to read and write to the network. All of that's handled for you. Okay. What you're going to be doing is handling this stuff. So when you're programming games, what you're going to be doing is saying when something happens, do something. So you're going to be handling events. What is an event? Do you know what an event is, Ada?
I know an event is in real life.
Events, okay. Bloons Tower Defense, yeah. Bloons TD can definitely struggle at times. There's a lot going on.
Events are like, I guess if you're talking about like events in like real life, events are like
a party.
Special things that happen.
Special things that happen. That's actually
that are apart from like your normal daily life.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what it is in a video game, except it's not a party. It's something like what Isaac said, a mouse click. Right? So a mouse click is an event, because what's going to happen is when you're running your game's just going to be like cruising along, doing its thing, and then all of a sudden the player clicks, right? That doesn't fall into this, main loop kind of thing here. Instead, what happens is that an event happens, and it's asynchronous. You don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know when the player is going to click, right? So you don't pause and wait for the player to do something. You just keep doing your loop, and then when the player clicks, then it triggers an event handler, okay? So there's a mouse click, and this triggers an event handler. This is a different way of thinking about programming than if you've taken like CSI 40 or 41 or something like that. It's different because normally in computer science we program this part. Like you're in a loop and you like move things, you update, and you move things. But when you're working with games or anything involving people, you don't know when they're going to hit a key on the keyboard, right? You don't know when they're going to click the mouse. And so key events are also like a key press, right? And that's going to get its own event handler, right? And so every single thing the player can do in your game, like in real life, like, not in the game, but like in real life, that they can move the mouse. They can mouse wheel up and down. They can, I don't know, have a touch interface, right? All of those things, you have to program an event handler for them. And this is what you're going to be programming when you program games in UE5 this semester. If you become more advanced, you might be the person coding this, right? That's IS50B stuff, okay? But in this class, what we're going to be doing is saying when the person clicks, shoot a rocket, okay? When the person hits space, jump. These event handlers are what you're going to be programming. All right? It's a trigger, yeah, and it's a different way of thinking about programming. It's a different paradigm than your normal computer science programming. It's still a program, but it happens not randomly, but like you don't know when it's going to happen, right? So, other kinds of events would be not from the user, something like a collision, okay? And so you throw a basketball. You're making some NBA game. You throw the basketball hits the backboard or something. You can have a event handler for that, right? So I guess I can keep drawing event handlers for each of these things, but I think you get the idea. So you can say when, you create a ball and you can say when that ball hits something, do something. And then maybe it plays like a bouncing sound. Boing or something. I don't know. What sound does a basketball make? Boing?
No, it does not make.
It doesn't go boing?
No, it does not go boing.
What sound does it make?
It goes like.
Okay.
Like something like that, but like more like.
Bejoing?
No.
My student said bejoing.
No.
Bonk?
It goes like. Okay, let me get a ball together.
Bwomp.
It sounds like a normal ball hitting a wall.
Trolling your daughter. Okay. Swish. Yeah, and so basically you can have a collision handler for your ball, and I'm
That's what it sounds like.
Okay, there you go. I'll accept that. So maybe when you click a mouse, you fire a rocket, or something. And then when you do a key press, space, and there's one for each, key press, space, or something. You jump, and then when you collide, you play a ka-chow sound. Okay.
Really?
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 That's why students say, and they're never. They don't lie. Okay.
Listen to this guy, okay? Listen
Bonk.
to this guy.
You like bonk better? Okay. So when the ball collides with something, so it's very easy to program. You just say on collision, play sound, and then you have to have the asset, bonk, or whatever. Boing. Ka-chow. And then you play it. And if you look at how complicated that is in Unreal Engine, it's like this big. Like there's going to be one node. Hey, Unreal Engine's
okay.
launching. Okay. There's going to be one node for, how's it out of date? It's like instantly out of date. And we got 8,000 shaders still going, so I'll lecture a little more. But basically it's going to look something like this. Like on hit, play sound. Ka-chow. There.
I forgot the GIF.
Yep. Okay. And that's how you program. And, you know, like, I don't want to make it sound like it's easy, because it's not. There's a lot that goes into a video game, right? Like, if you are making a video game of any size whatsoever, there's just a lot of details that go into it. But it's not usually that bad. Okay. So, yeah. So this is a event that it's not triggered by the human, right? It's not like a key press or mouse click or something like that. The engine itself can generate events. Does that make sense? Another really important one is the overlap, which is similar to collision but a little different. The nodes in the blueprints take a lot of the syntax out of programming code, which makes it a lot easier to understand. Yeah. Yeah. And you can't link up things if they don't match up the right type and stuff like that. So overlap would be like how you do I don't understand what Betancourt's trying to get at, but whatever. Okay, so overlap is like how last time we talked about how doors work in video games, right? Like you might have a door like this, and we're not talking about Last of Us doors, but just like, you know, Kearney's lazy doors, right? And so what you can do is you can have like an invisible zone around the door, and then when somebody walks in to that invisible zone, that is an overlap event. Does that make sense, Ada?
No.
So like you can create an invisible box, and when the person walks into it, the door opens. That's how it is in a lot of video games.
What if it smacks you in the face?
Typically, you just have it go right through you. Because, like I was talking last time, I spent way too much time trying to make doors, you know, and it like, no, just let it pass right through you, you know, or just have the door slide into the ground.
You get turned into a ghost for 3 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Or yeah, you have the door vanish, or you have it slide into the wall. That's very common too. Doors are very hard to program if you're trying to do them correctly. If you're not trying to do them correctly, they're very easy to do.
How about like if you're trying to make like an old rusty like stone cave, you can just like add in like a fence like rock grinding against each other while it's sliding into. It's like. Sliding.
You could, yeah, you could have it go, and you could play a sound and have it slide into the walls and things like that. Or another example, if we're going with a cave, you can have a spooky cave. Right, here's a spooky cave that is in rainbow colors, right? And you can add like an area in it, invisible box, or you can have an invisible sphere, either way. And when the person walks into that zone, it triggers bats flying out. Ah, shh. If once you've done game development, you can see what people are doing in video games. Like you're walking forward, and you enter a new area, and it triggers a cutscene. Right? I've been playing Borderlands, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. And you know when there's going to be a cutscene, because there's a big doorway and you walk through it and it's like, and now, you know, like, and so what they have is they just have one of these like little, these are called triggers, right? And so it's just an invisible thing that just covers the entrance, and when the player enters it, it triggers something. Okay. You guys understand? Like, we're just talking very high level. I haven't shown you how to do any of this yet, but just as a high level, this is basically all there is to game development. There's more if you want to get into like networking and stuff like that. But as far as like programming a game, it's about it. You know, you click a mouse, the WASD keys. You run into something. You enter a zone and trigger cutscene. Like, is that kind of? Yeah, does that make sense? Like, these are basically what you program to make a game.
You might want to look at your screen because I think it's like loaded.
Think it's loaded?
Yeah. I mean, I saw like a white bar from like a screen.
All right.
From like that launch it. What in the world?
Bethesda. That's funny.
Wait, no. What? I'm gonna see.
Yeah, put up here for posterity. Remember last time I was talking about like step sizes? Like if you're walking up on a step, you know, if a player walks forward and there's a vertical wall in front of them, that it'll figure out the step size and either step up on it or not. So Bethesda has a step size, you know, for humans, but for horses, horses in Skyrim are able to walk up a, if there's an incline like that, like the horses are just like, all right,
Tell them about the bug.
let's do this,
Tell them about the bug.
they just
Tell them about the
they
bug.
just fly on
Tell them
up.
about the bug.
Yeah, and so my daughter and I figured out that
I did not figure it out. I copied it off of DuckDuck.
That bug.
Yeah.
Well, we did the one where like if you mount or dismount, like the horse just starts rising up into the air.
Oh yeah, like that was like a bug. I think it's because they were like on top of a stone, and like as soon as I dismount, then the horse just starts going like this. Oh, it just like ascends to the heaven, like, and then I jump back off and ascend to the heaven with it. So.
Okay, so if you're on a horse at a steep angle and you get off, then you fall through the wall. That's another bug. That actually was not at all what I was talking about. So step size, right? And so I was saying it's hard to get these things right. So in Bethesda's Gamebryo engine, what happens is you step up on here, right? But this is a change in Z, right? And so the physics engine is like, oh, you went up quite a lot in one frame, and so it'll proceed to launch you in the air. At least it did that in Fallout New Vegas. And so a friend of mine was one of the lead developers of Fallout New Vegas, and after I beat the game, I mailed her. I'm like, hey, I really like Fallout New Vegas. I think you did a really good job. She's like, thank you. How many bugs did you find? And so that was her response. Like, how many bugs did you find? Yeah, and so I remember playing Fallout New Vegas and bad guys walking at me, and they hit like a little curb, and they step up on it, but because they're running quickly, the distance and so the physics engine just decided, oh, they have a huge vertical change in one frame, and so it flung them into the air. Then I just kind of sat there and watched these bandits like up in the sky, and eventually they come flying down, hit the ground, they would die from falling damage. It was great.
Yay! $300 for killing bandits without killing them.
Fallout New Vegas is a masterpiece, yeah.
Well,
yep.
Remember in Cyberpunk how like this guy you're trying to kill was like, or you did kill was like, I didn't sign up for this, and he had his head chopped off and was bleeding.
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, Cyberpunk 2077 was amazingly buggy when it came out. My daughter was upset they were fixing the bugs because she just liked them so much.
Yep.
You're driving down the street on your motorcycle, and your guy just stands up and starts T-posing,
Or like this guy, or like the meme where like he's trying to climb down the ladder, but he does it in T-pose.
Mm-hmm. In the final combat, Keanu Reeves is just standing there watching me T-posing the whole time. He's just asserting dominance over the evil corporation. He just stands there T-posing. Like, you run around, there's just Keanu Reeves T-posing. Like, it's incredible.
Like you shoot a guy, he just immediately T-poses.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Nope, we still got 4,000 shaders to go here.
Come on.
I know. Ray tracing, girl. Okay, so this is what you're going to be programming in this class. Okay, everything's going to fall into like one of basically these four things that I can think of. And so the events trigger your code, and then you have to write code to do something, right? So, and we're going to learn how to do all this kind of stuff, like how do you create a projectile, right? How do you create an object and have it move through the world? Or if you want to shoot a laser beam, like how do you have a starting point and an ending point and shoot a line through the world to see what you hit and then hit it? We're going to go over all that this semester. Interesting. Is that Watch Dogs? Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, there's a lot of honestly, all the bugs in the Bethesda games are just part of their charm. Honestly, people just walking into walls and not moving.
Like, or in Skyrim, this person was trying to like say, get out of my house, and like he was just like walking into his own chair and stuff.
Yeah, get out of my house, and they just walk. Yeah. Or you could rob shopkeepers by putting a bucket over their head.
What?
If you put a bucket over their head, they don't have line of sight to you anymore, and then you can steal everything in their shop. So you just take a bucket and dump it over their head, rob everything. They're like, are you going to buy anything? Hey, I heard that bandits are in your way. Just with the bucket on their head. It's fantastic.
Okay, I should try that. What the heck is that Skyrim mod?
It's
that is.
I don't think it's Skyrim. I think this is
No, that.
Spider-Man. But he's
no, the thing about
this isn't a T pose, by the way. This is an A pose. So A pose is like this, and T pose is like this. And that's actually a term in game development. Okay. All right. So yeah, so we're gonna be doing what's called event-driven programming. Okay. We're not gonna be messing with this stuff this semester. We're gonna be messing with this stuff this semester. Okay. So let's. I could probably do this while the shaders are still running. Let's see if I can at least do something. All right. So we got a little thing. The physics are a little janky, huh? All right.
What?
It's got a really weird.
Well, don't worry. That's happening.
Okay. Okay, so at least we can get going while the shaders are still compiling in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's start off with the simplest event-driven programming that I can think of, which is you you walk up to the top of the ramp here, and you play a sound. That's about as easy as it gets, right? It's like two nodes of programming. So, you guys ready for this? You guys excited? Learning some programming, making some games. We're not going to do cutscenes yet. We're just going to play a sound. What sounds do we have? Explosion, fire. Okay, we'll just use one of these starter ones. I'll show you in a bit how to import stuff. I kind of did that a little bit yesterday, but I'll kind of have to show you. Okay, so how do we make it so that when they walk to the top of the ramp here, it plays music? Okay, let's do that. So on the left-hand side here, you will see something called trigger box. Ada, do you see the left-hand side? You don't. So what you need to do, if you don't have this layout here, go to Window, go to Load Layout, and choose UE4 Classic Layout. So under the Window menu, scroll down towards the bottom, 4 up from the bottom, you will see it say Load Layout,
Yeah.
and then load UE4 Classic Layout.
Okay. Got it.
And then you should see the Place Actors palette on the left-hand side, and go over to just like Basic. Basic is this tab right here, and then you will see an option for trigger box. Yesterday we learned how to place objects into the world, and so you should remember how to do that. W, E, and R allow you to move it, rotate it, and scale it. And scaling triggers is actually something we do, because you don't have to worry about stretching textures and things like that, right? When we don't usually scale objects very often because it makes the textures get all screwy. Like if I were to scale this thing here, like it just looks bad. But scaling a trigger box, okay.
That one just looks like an outline.
Because it's invisible. So what you're doing is you are showing which part of the map the trigger is covering. Okay. And this is, if you ever look at how video games are made, these are everywhere. Like in any game with a story, you walk into a new area, and the boss drops out of the ceiling and says, "Welcome, mortals," or something like that. There's going to be a trigger box on it, or a trigger sphere. If you want, you can do a trigger sphere. If the region you want to trigger, if it's circular, you can do a trigger sphere instead. It's exactly the same. You just have it match the shape. And there's actually some really funny bugs that occur when the map makers don't have the trigger zone exactly cover like the entrance. And so a lot of speedrunners in different games will do things like they'll bunny hop or rocket jump over the trigger zone and then just bypass an area without actually triggering the fight. Things like that. If you guys know what I'm talking about. Trigger box, yeah, third person template. So you got your.
I don't know how to look down. How do you look
You should probably get a mouse, girl. Ada. Here.
I don't know how to mouse.
I got mice.
Moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. It's using a touchpad is just
Horrible.
yeah. Okay. So you guys all got out a trigger box like this.
What in the world?
What's this dragon? I have no idea, dude. Okay. Let's see.
I still
Okay,
can't,
please send me a copy of the poll. All right. Okay, so they want a copy of the poll for audit purposes. Let me pause the recording real fast. Okay, so we've got here a trigger in the world, and if we were to just walk over it right now, absolutely nothing happens. Why? Because we haven't coded anything to happen. We just have this region. And if you ever want to select a trigger box like this, don't try clicking on the outline. It just doesn't work. Click on the icon. Okay, that's what the icons are there for. But you can see it doesn't appear in the world. It's just you're defining a region of space. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add some code to this region of space. All right. Make an emergency run to Starbucks to re-download it. All right. Good luck. It's not that fast. All right. So right click and where are you? Yeah, like I said, in this semester, you're going to see me like pause briefly and be like, wait, where did you go? So there used to be a giant blue button that said convert to blueprint, and now it's this button right here. So do you see on the details tab, there is a green plus to the right of it. There is a little flowchart looking thing. It's got like three rectangles. So while you have, select the trigger box. Make sure the trigger box is selected.
Yeah.
And then,
No. Yes. No. Yes.
okay. And then once you have the trigger box selected, here, let me show you again, Ada. Here, let me show you. Ada, watch. Okay, you click on the trigger box.
Yeah.
Then right here, there is a little flowchart looking thing. Right there. Yours will actually probably be about halfway down. Let me switch the layout to
Oh yeah, I see that. I see
what
that.
you
I
look
see
like.
that. I found it.
Okay.
It's like a little down.
Okay. And it's right in there. Okay. And then the name of the blueprint is going to be called Play Music when entering zone. I don't know. Just come up with any name you want.
Where do you put in the name?
Right here. Blueprint name. Play music on ramp, walk up. You can call it whatever you want. But just don't call it blueprint, because then you'll never be able to find it in the future. Right? So if you don't have a details box, yeah, the way they do it is they have two tabs here. They have like the world streaming tab that hides the details tab. It's kind of annoying. It's something I don't really like about UE5. All right, Bittencourt, you don't need to do the hyper memes. Okay, and then we hit select like this. And now we are in the blueprint editor. So this is where your this is where you're going to be spending most of your life in this class doing programming. So when you go into it, it starts off by just showing you the object you're editing the code for. Not very exciting, right? It's just the box. You're like, okay, cool. Neat. Thanks for showing me. Our code is going to be in this thing here called event graph. Okay. So Ada, go ahead and click on event graph. Are you in the? Oh no, you didn't name your blueprint yet.
Oh.
So name your blueprint. Play sound. Play music when walk up. Okay. And now you're in the. Now are you in the
Oh, yeah.
the thing here? Okay. Then click on event graph right here.
Oh.
Yeah, it just shows you a preview of the trigger box, and then you are going to click on Event Graph like this. Did you find Event Graph? It's right here. There's a little tab. There's Construction Script, Viewport, and Event Graph.
Yes, there, I found it.
Okay, Event Graph will look like this. Okay, and so there are 3 events that appear. Do you see the 3 events? Yep. They're grayed out. They currently don't do anything. But one of the events is Begin Play. So I probably should have had that in my notes over here. One of the events that can trigger is when the game starts. And so you could have it like when the game starts, like, I don't know, start a conveyor belt up or something like that. Like it's very common in a game, like, set the score to 100 or, whatever when the game starts. You kind of can do lots of stuff when the game starts. We're not doing anything with that right now. This one, however, we're going to mess with. And this one we're not going to do right now. How do you get there again? What happened here? Snap this together here. So I dragged out a trigger box, I moved it and resized it to be the area that I want to have something happen when I walk up. I selected the trigger box, and then right here, I clicked on the little flowcharty thing, and then I named it Play Music on Ramp Walk Up, which is a very awkward name. And once you hit OK, it takes you into the blueprint editor. And it will start off by just showing you a picture of what the trigger box looks like, which is kind of pointless because it's just an empty box. But a lot of times you're messing with persons or monsters and you can actually see the thing. And then you're going to click on Event Graph here. And then this is where the magic happens. This is where you're going to be doing your coding in this class. Okay? Do you follow that? Skyward 8 Skyfall? Do you see those steps?
His computer lagged.
Yeah, your computer lagged, but did you see it when I just went over it again? White tea. The last part is when you hit OK, it takes you into the this screen here, and right there in kind of the center and middle top part of the screen, there's a tab called Event Graph. Event Graph is where you do programming. Okay. And what we're going to be doing is we're not going to be doing anything with Begin Play or Event Tick. You can leave them. I delete them if I don't use them. So just click on them, hit the delete key. It doesn't change anything. It's just purely just me liking to keep things tidy when doing coding. And now we're going to write a program. You guys ready for this? Are you ready for this?
What if we accidentally delete the wrong one? I didn't do it, but just in case I might do it one day in the future.
Like if I accidentally delete Begin Overlap?
Just press Control Z again?
Control Z, but let's say it's too late, and we've got nothing here. Well, you can right click on the screen and type in Begin Overlap, and then everything in the UE coding system that has Begin and Overlap in it will appear here. And so we can see right here there's an event called Actor Begin Overlap. You just click on that and then we get it again.
Okay.
Right?
Because I'm going to make mistakes.
Yeah, that's how you do things in the blueprint editor. You right click and you type things, and I never search through all of the things, unless something's gone really wrong and I just can't remember the name of something, which does happen. Because the naming system isn't always consistent. So you're like, is it this or is it okay? So now let's do this. So this box here will activate when the person walks inside of the zone. Okay? And this little white wire here, so you just click and drag out. That white wire there says, when somebody walks inside of the zone, do this. And what we want to do is play a sound. And so you can see the little search box comes up. And we're just going to say play sound. And we can just play sound 2D. 2D means it's not in the game world. A lot of times when you play sounds, they're in the game world. Like if there's an explosion over there, it'll come out more of the left speaker than the right speaker, right? But if we're just going to be playing like some background music or something like that, we don't want it like embodied in the world. We don't want it so that when we rotate around, we hear it here and then we hear it here and it gets louder and quieter. If we're just playing background music, it should just be a 2D sound, right? So it's just play sound in the interface, right? So we're going to do play sound 2D like that, okay? And I always like to,
How do you move?
what's that?
I can't move like this. Oh, there you go.
I always like to try and keep these things like lined up nicely. Like when it's like this, it just kind of bugs me a little bit. So what you can do is you can select these things and hit Q. If you hit Q, it makes them nice and pretty. Okay, and so what sound should we play? Would you like to play an explosion? Would you like to play some music? I'm planning on playing music because I named it that, right? But if you click on right here, which sound you want to play, you can just click on that. You can just scroll around. If you want to preview something, you can hit the little, preview thing. You like the starter music? It's birds. Okay, stop. All right. So this is basically your first program. Okay.
Can we make our own sounds?
You can make your own sounds, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. But that's your program. So when somebody walks into the trigger zone, play the starter music. Now there's going to be a problem with this, which I'll show in just a little bit. But please post once you guys have this in. Ada, do you have it?
Still choosing one.
Okay. Let me know online when you guys have it. If you play sound, explosions, you walk
Yes.
in. There you go. Little owl. I don't know the relevance of it, but okay, here you go.
Yeah.
Ada, were you able to get it?
Yeah.
Okay. Ciao. So you're doing so you clicked on, if you click on the little down arrow here, it'll show you more options. You can adjust the pitch up, pitch down, make it louder, quieter. So for now, just use the simple settings. All right. So when you're done, you have to compile your code. All right. And this looks a little bit different from compiling code if you've done programming before with like text files and G++ and things like that. All you have to do is hit the little compile button here and save on compile always. Normally you hit compile and you hit save, but I make it so that when I hit compile it saves automatically. That way I don't forget.
I lose a lot of progress.
Yeah, so right here, if you click on the little triple dots, you can make it always save on compilation, which saves you a click. Yeah, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. Okay, so now let's run the game. Okay, so what I did is, for you guys, you probably have a separate window like this, but I don't like having to like close and reopen and stuff like that. So what I do is I pull the tab and dock it like that. So if you grab the tab, you can undock things and you can redock things like that. And so what I like to do is I like to have just a couple tabs like this so I can play the game and then just click back over and edit it. Click back over. Sometimes though you want it on a different screen. It just depends. I mess with the layout all the time. So here we go. Let's play it. And here we got our laser mannequin. It's got some weird bumps on the back of the head, huh? Bit weird. Yep. And then we walk into here.
Oh my god. Sounds like Subnautica to me. Why can't I click on it?
It's pretty loud.
Sounds way too much like Subnautica. I
Yep. Simulate body collision. Set to simulate physics. Oh, interesting. Okay. So invalid simulate options. Body is set to simulate physics, but collision enabled is incompatible. Okay. So let's take a look at that.
It's not working on mine.
Do you have your sound turned off?
No. Maybe it's just too low? Because I'm trying not to interrupt your lesson.
Yeah, it's fine. That's questions. If it's not working for you, it won't work for other people too.
Well, it's not working.
So the box trigger here, we don't want it simulating physics, right? Because you don't want your trigger zone falling out of the world. You know what I mean? So turning off simulate physics, and
Yeah, it's literally not working.
yeah, no error. That's not okay, good.
Like, it's really not working.
Okay, let me pause and I will take a look. One thing I am going to do though is I'm going to turn the volume down because it's really loud. I'm just going to turn that down to like 20%. And then you guys probably aren't hearing it on the stream because I'm streaming my window and not the app. But it was really loud. Okay, better. All right, let me pause and let me help my daughter real fast. And when you create your blueprint, you're going to see it's added to your content browser down here. Like I said, one thing I like to do is just to create a build directory, and you don't have to call it build. And I just move all the stuff that I make into there, so that all the stuff that I have is in one easy to find place, and I will typically subdivide it into blueprints and sounds and things like that. And if you ever want to make more copies of this, you can just drag out you can drag out more copies of the music player, right? So if you want, like I just put one right here, right? And the music starts playing. Okay. And they're still set to simulate physics. That is so weird. Okay. Why does it default to simulate physics? Wait, this one isn't set to simulate physics. Maybe this one? Gravity. Invalid simulate options, body, play music, and wrap up. Sprite. The sprite is set to emulate physics. It's so strange. Okay. Nope.
You know what's weird?
What is weird?
You know how, like, if you hit this certain point, you know, if you, like, I have a question because, like, I put, like, this sound box, like, right here, like, where you spawn, but, like, when I walk around, I realize that the place where I put it, I thought I put it on the place where I spawned, and I thought I did, but I had to move away from where I was spawning to actually play the sound.
So yeah, if you spawn inside of it, it might not trigger it might not trigger the begin overlap. Simulate physics is off on that one. I don't know what it's complaining about. Generate. No, we're working on game development right now. Generate events. What's that? Yeah, it was very cool.
That was a fish?
There's something on the way to becoming a fish eventually, evolutionary.
Okay.
Weird. Okay. You don't think your ear's gonna scrub it? How did you save it to your folder? Okay.
Oh
So what I did, yeah, it's gonna just create a series of explosions or something. That's amazing. It's like the 4th of July. Like I think I got hearing damage from it. Like those things are so loud. When you create it by default, it'll just be in your core content folder down here, and you can just drag it in to a folder. So you can right click, make a new folder, or right click, it's on my face probably, right click, new folder, and then you can just use the content browser to just drag things around. Makes things easier. Okay. So that is that. Another thing that I typically almost always do when I'm doing programming is I usually print some sort of message to the screen, at least the first time that that I do something, just to make sure that the thing's triggering, right? Like, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Like if you don't set something properly and you walk over it, just nothing happens. And you're like, why is nothing happening? Like that's what happened with my daughter. I looked at her configuration, everything looked fine. She had copied what I had done exactly, but when she walked over the zone, nothing happened. And so one of the first things I start with is to actually just print a message to the screen. So I've closed out of this thing. So if I want to go back into it, I double click, and that reopens the blueprint editor. And so you can oftentimes just start off, even before you do a sound or something, with print string. So string in computer science is words. And so if you want to add a print string to the thing, you can just type something like, I don't know, like entered music player or something like that. And so adding a little like debug thing like that is oftentimes very useful, because then you get to see, did my thing, like, is there a problem with the sound, or is there a problem with my trigger? Does that make sense? So you see right there, entered a music player. So sometimes like the sound is just too quiet, like, or maybe you typed in 0 for the volume, or maybe you're trying to play an MP3 player and UE does not support MP3s, which it doesn't, which is weird. Maybe not that weird, but kind of weird. And so oftentimes the first thing I do is I just print a string like, I've entered the zone, and then at least I know that the thing is triggering properly, and the problem is with my music or something like that. So do you guys follow me on that? This is like my go-to first thing that I do when I'm coding is just print, hey, the user clicked the mouse, the user hit jump, the user entered the cave, just so that I know the triggers and all that stuff, the events are all happening properly, because it is quite possible to configure your thing so that it doesn't. Like if we're here and we turn off something, I don't know, where is it? Yeah, it's quite possible to screw it up, so it just doesn't trigger. So, how would you upload your own sounds? Great question. Let's do it. So, you can use a voice recorder. So, Ada, what kind of sound should I make?
Yippee!
Yippee! Doesn't work. Close. Microsoft, high quality. La, 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 la. And there's no cancel button. That was fantastic work, Microsoft. You broke a voice recorder. Oh yeah, mic's being used by Discord. True. But yeah, let's just take the easier route, and let's just go to free WAV files. So the file format that UE4 uses for its sounds is called WAV, W-A-V, and so Free Sound is a website that has tons of free sounds on it. So open up your web browser and go to www.freesound.org, and they just have tons of free sounds for use.
They're having trouble.
You can't go to the website? Maybe it's not www, just freesound.org, not .com, org.
It's .org.
Log into download. So you're gonna have to you are gonna have to log in on it, but it doesn't cost anything. So okay. So yeah, just make a free account, and then and then download, save it to your desktop or whatever.
I don't know how to do that.
There's lots of websites where you can just download a free WAV file or something like that. So, yeah, it does not support MP3s. You have to use WAV files. So once you've downloaded your WAV file, and you can get it from wherever, you can record your own. I think if you record your own on Windows, it doesn't save it in a WAV file format, so you have to convert it to WAV file format. And you can find websites to do that as well. Why don't you see wwws on URLs anymore? Well, mostly because it's pointless. if you're visiting a website, it is World Wide Web. But that's a holdover from the time when, like at UCSD, there would be an FTP server, and that'd be ftp.ucsd.edu. There'd be web server www.ucsd.edu. There'd be a Gopher server, and nowadays everything's web, so it's kind of redundant. If you're connecting something over port 80, it's web. So. I'm Batman by Pikachu. That's funny.
I'm Batman.
What?
I'm Batman.
What the heck?
Yeah, and so more seriously, there's all sorts of like laser sound effects and gun sounds and stuff like that. So you can use you can search it for, like, I don't know, laser beam or something like that, and then you can just preview them.
What?
No. 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 No.
More like a motorcycle.
Alright, that one's pretty cool, but I just want like a single shot, you know? Yeah. It can take some time to go through that. Yeah, that's not the point. The point is, like, how do we import this into Unreal Engine? Okay. So I downloaded a WAV file, and you can download a WAV file wherever, it doesn't matter. And then you go into your content browser down here. Let's see what we got here. Laser machine gun. I think I would get annoyed by that sound, like, pretty quickly.
It sounds like a microwave.
Yeah, that's what it is. Microwave finishing. Yeah, very good. Okay, alright, yes. Alright, so anyway, once you've downloaded the WAV file, whichever file you want, it doesn't really matter right now, click on Import, and then I'm going to go up to my desktop, and there is the Matsuri 60 megabyte thing, and then that'll import, and there you go. You got a sound. Okay. Now, Ada were able to find, you're going to have to create an account, or log in as me, one or the other, to download a WAV file from free sounds.
Okay, already.
Just hit log in,
Enough.
log in as me, and then download a WAV file. Now,
Ice cream.
once you have a WAV file, you've got a sound file, and you can play it that way. If we come over here, we should be able to find Matsuri,
There's
And-
an option for ice cream.
and it'll work. You come over here. Again, you guys can't hear it, but it's playing the Matsuri background music. Okay. But usually we want to do a little bit more. There's one more step. It's optional. It's an optional step, but I recommend it when you work with sounds, and that is to convert a sound into what's called a sound cue. So whenever you change the sound, do you need to compile or anything? No. No, the only format, as far as I know, that it supports is WAV files. And so if you have an OGG Vorbis file, you can find a website that'll do the conversion for you. So, so the thing that I recommend doing is converting anytime you mess with sounds to make what's called a sound cue instead of just playing the raw WAV file. So you right-click on the WAV file, and you'll see that there's an option called Create Cue, like a cue stick. Okay. And what this is it gives you a little bit more control over the sound. You don't have to do it, but I like doing it, especially with things with like gunshots and footsteps and things like that. And I'll show you why in a second. So I'm going to create a cue, and then I'll just call this Matsuri cue. And if I play it, again, you probably can't hear it on stream. It's exactly the same. It plays exactly the same way. If I come over into my blueprint here, I can choose the Matsuri cue here, and it'll be exactly the same. Like so. So what's the point? You know, it's exactly the same so far. The point is this: if you double click on the cue, it takes you into the super cool audio editor. Okay. And you can actually mess with the settings of the sound in here. You can't really mess with the WAV file in any way. But here you can, you got the source here, and you want it to loop, you want it to not loop. You want to add some reverb to it, you want to add a modulator like this. You can just hook it up like that. And the modulator, when you click on the modulator node, it will randomly pick a volume. Okay, so some of the times when you play it, it'll be 5% softer. Some of the times it'll be 5% louder. Sometimes it'll be normal loudness, and the pitch will be sometimes lower. Pitch will be sometimes higher. You absolutely don't want to do that for music, but for things like gunshots, footsteps, any sound that plays a lot, the human ear gets tired of it, like real fast when it's the same sound over and over again. And so if you modulate it, every time you fire the bullet, it's go psh, 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 psh. Like it'll randomly be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, and it sounds a lot more natural to our ears. And it's just really easy to do. So if I set this at like some absurd level, like 0.1 and 2, when I play it, sometimes it'll play high-pitched, sometimes it's low-pitched, sometimes really high-pitched. Sometimes really high pitch. Sometimes really low pitch. Right. So you're not going to do that for music, but for for any footsteps, sometimes the footstep will be a little louder, sometimes it'll be a little softer, and you can adjust all those parameters. And so there's a lot of cool stuff you can do and mess with your sounds doing it that way. So I don't. This is just music, so I'm not going to hook you up. But I can have it loop so that just the thing is just constantly playing. As long as I'm on the level, there's just going to be this background music of people talking and things like that. So I'll turn that on. Why not? Okay. It's a 5-minute long sound, so I'm not going to sit here and play it for 5 minutes for you. But basically, once that thing kicks off, it's going to be just playing until forever, until the level ends. Any questions about that? About how to import a sound? Aiden, were you able to do it?
Yeah, I imported it, but you need to get the little speaker.
Oh, to do the cue? Okay, so do you see the WAV file in your content browser here? So go back out to the main screen.
I definitely downloaded it.
Huh? Did you import it yet? Okay, so there's an import button right here. So right there is the import button on the content browser. And again, you can move this screen out of the way so you can see a little better. And so you click on the import, and then you import the WAV file. And then once you've imported it, right click on it, choose Create Cue, and then use the cue, basically, instead of the WAV file. You don't need to recompile when you change the sound. It just, everything works automatically. Okay. So that is a way of kind of making your level interactive, right? So you can, you build a, cave system, and you walk in, and the person says, "Oh, it's really dark in here. I should light a flashlight," or something like that. Okay. Any questions about this? To be fair, this kind of ruins your enjoyment a little bit, at least, of video games, because you know exactly how they do it, right? How do we make it so they won't start the sound again? They'll only play the first time. Well, you can turn off looping if it's set to be looping. There's also ways of stopping sounds as well. So, for example, you can make it so that maybe this area here is the I don't know. You're gonna have to use your imagination. But maybe this area here is a festival area, and there's like people walking around and stuff like that. And maybe you want it so that it stops playing when you leave the area, right? So when you're in the area, it's playing nightclub music. When you leave the area,
it like slowly
turns off.
like quiets down as you get farther away from it.
Right. But it's just playing, right? See, we want it so that when we leave the overlapped area, to stop the music, right? And so if you remember Laser Zombies from yesterday, we actually had music playing in the world itself. This is 2D music, it just comes out of your speakers. But we had it in a specific location, and we set up attenuation. And so if you go into the queue, you can see that there is attenuation settings, and you can actually set how the music goes through walls and things like that. And you can change, like, does only the bass go through, which is kind of cool. There's a lot you can mess with there. I really don't want to get too far into that today, though, because we've got a lot more important stuff to talk about. But like, this is where you could like mess with that kind of stuff. But yeah, let's just say like when you leave the zone, the sound turns off. Okay. So play sound 2D there. Okay. So let's see if I remember how to do this. I don't usually stop playing music. So there is an event called end overlap, right? So when you walk into that trigger zone, it will start playing the music, and then we want it, when they leave the zone, to stop the music, right? And so first thing I do always is print a string. And I'm just going to start off by just saying player left. And I always delete these when I'm done with them. Otherwise, when you're playing your game, there's just messages popping in and out all over the place, and it gets super distracting. If you don't pull these out, then you just end up getting just spammed by your own code all over the place. And so I just put them in temporarily just to make sure they work, So I walk up here, music's playing, I walk out, player left zone. Okay, cool. I know the event is triggering. So Ada, so we created a node called end overlap, and so the one up top here will trigger when we enter the zone, and the one down below will trigger when we leave the zone. Yeah. You're struggling with compiling the code, so when you click compile, does it not work? I'm gonna need to see a screenshot, Katie, of what it's saying when it doesn't work. Oh, like if you walk into it again, it starts again. Oh, you only want to play once. Okay, I can show you how to do that in a second. It's a good question. Yeah, because like if you walk into a cave and the person's like, "Oh, I should turn on my flashlight," you don't want it saying that every time they walk over the thing again, right? Like, it'd be it's really annoying. Okay. Let me see if this works first. Like I said, I don't stop sounds usually. So stop. Let's see if just give me a second. see if this works. If you want to cut a link that you don't want, hold down Control and click on it. Or I think Alt. Yeah, Alt will do it also. So what I'm going to do now is rather than just playing the sound, I'm spawning a sound. That allows me to save the sound so that I can stop it later, in theory. Let me see if it works first. You're going to see me do this a lot during game development. Like if it's something I haven't done in a while, I have to kind of like remember, you know. Oh, no sound. Okay. Right. Access none. Trying to read property call functions. Oh. It's because I didn't select an asset. Okay. Give me a second. Just let me see if this works. Okay. Sound's playing. And it stopped. Okay. Good. I did not embarrass myself on the second day of classes. So here's the setup if you want to make it so that when you enter like a marketplace, it's playing the marketplace music, and then when you leave the marketplace, it turns off. It's not super realistic because it just will cut off like that. I would normally use attenuation for that, so it gets gradually quieter as you leave. But this is a perfectly reasonable way of doing it. So what we got here are two events. One is called begin overlap, one is called end overlap. Begin overlap triggers when you enter the zone, end overlap triggers when you leave the zone. Okay? The first thing I did was rather than just playing the sound, which it just plays until it finishes, I did something called spawn a sound. It's exactly the same, except it allows you to save the sound. And so if you later on need to mess with it, you can like you can pause the sound. You can mess with the sound as it's playing. And so in this case, I hooked up this down here to a node called stop. And so when we leave the zone, it stops the sound that was playing before. You can delete the white link by alt clicking. If you control click, it will sort of interrupt the wire kind of. Alt click just deletes it. So you can control click to like put something in between. All right, so I'll give you a second to try and get that to work. Ada, were you able to get this to work? Do you see the nodes that I got here? Let me pause the recording and just make sure everyone's on the same page here. So one thing I should mention is there is a context-dependent search, and so if you were to just search for like stop on its own, you're going to get like stop AR session, stop performance, like what, you know. And so one really important thing in Unreal Engine is the different pins mean different things. So white is flow of control. Do this, then this, then this, then this, as you follow the white line. Blue represents a variable. Okay, in this case, an actor variable when it's blue. If you pull out from the blue pin instead of the white pin, then it will give you just a list. When you search for stop, it'll give you just a list of things that take those audio component object references, whatever that is, right? And so it gives you the right thing. So there's a ton of things that have stop in its name, but if you pull out from the audio variable, it'll only give you the functions that work with that variable type, which is really nice. It's actually much nicer than like C++, where you can try passing any variable to any variable and then the compiler will yell at you. In Unreal Engine, if you pull out from the variable type, it'll only show you the functions that work with that variable. It's really nice. And then you just have to disconnect the white lines here because by default it'll hook it up for you as a convenience.
I don't think they get you.
They don't get it? Okay. Tim, does that make sense? Like if you a lot of times when you do this stuff, you want to pull out from the like colored pins, and I haven't really explained what all the different colored pins and things like that mean yet. There's different different colors mean different kinds of variables, but for now the stuff we're working with is blue, which means it's some sort of actor, which I also haven't explained. Okay, how do you disconnect the white line? So if you had a white line hooked up like this, Alt-click will delete it. Also, you can right-click on the pin itself here. If you right-click on that, you can choose Break Link.
You can also do it the weird way and just like create a new tab and then delete that and delete the one.
Control-click allows you to put things in between the two. There's a lot of shortcuts in Unreal Engine, but Alt-click's the one you're looking for. Okay. So, and if your things are misaligned or something, Q will line them up. If you want them lined up vertically, then align left. Yeah, I spend way too much time in Unreal Engine, like lining things up. Okay, so they look nice. All right. Let's move on. My daughter wanted to mention something that I forgot to talk about, which is you can actually just put sounds in the game world itself.
I don't want to mention it.
So there is, if you search the tab over here, I guess you could go through each of the things here, but if you search for sound in the Place Actors tab, you'll see there's something called an ambient sound. You just drag that over there. It's invisible. You are not going to see a giant speaker in the game.
Would you like to press the speaker?
Yeah, you're not going to see that, but you can just have a sound in the world, like let's say you make a fireplace and there's just fire burning. You can have the, kind of sound. So, where are you? Where is the attenuation settings? There we go, sound. Okay. So let's say we have a little fireplace here. Great. And save. And so if I play the game, you can hear fire now. I don't know if you can hear the fire. But as I get closer, it's not attenuating at all. Attenuation settings. But yeah, that's how you put sound in the world. Okay. But yeah, you can make it so that it attenuates as you walk away from it. It gets quieter. When you get up to it, it gets louder. You can make it so that when it goes through walls, you only hear the low frequencies, things like that. It's pretty common thing to do. So ambient sound, you just put sounds in the world itself, fireplaces and things like that. All right. Kind of like the game object that controlled the sun we worked with yesterday. Yeah. So in Unreal Engine, there's a lot of these sort of invisible things, but they have an icon so you can click on them and select them and move them around. Like in the case of the sun, you can rotate it. In the case of the sound, you can move it around for where the sound's going to come from. What is this? This is like the sky box or something. Cloud ambient occlusion. Oh, that looks nice. Ice Ink.
Ice Incorporated.
Pretty sure that's spam. Okay. And so, yeah, if you want to mess with the clouds in the sky, there's tons of options for that. Yeah, okay. So let's talk about a few more things we could add to our levels real fast before we move on with the programming. What about fog? Fog's pretty cool, right? You guys like fog, right? If you had sound of the game, drag it in there, how'd you only make it play once? By default, it only plays once, but I think the fire sound loops. If you make a sound cue, you can choose if it's looping or not. So, the other thing you wanted, sorry, before we get into fog. Fog's cool, but there was one more question that was asked. How do you make it only play the sound once? Right? So you walk in there, it says, welcome to the Thunderdome. And then you leave, you come back in. You don't want it playing welcome to the Thunderdome again, right? So what you can do is, the simplest thing is just to delete it, right? Right? Something like that. So let's see if that works. It might turn off the sound. Yeah, it doesn't work. So yeah, okay. So what you can do is disable overlap. Probably is the easiest way of doing it. You can make a variable that tracks how many times you've played the sound. You could write down the time that you played the sound, and then if you come back in later, it doesn't play again. But if it's been like 3 hours, then maybe your guy walks in again and says, "Oh, I should turn on a flashlight or something." So there's a lot of different ways of doing it. Let's just disable overlap. Okay. Overlap. See if I can remember how to do this. Uh-oh, I launched Visual Studio by accident. That's another annoying thing about Unreal Engine. It's like, oh, you want to get into the source code? No, not really, actually. I just double-clicked by accident. And it's frozen until it continues. So, yeah. And so basically, there's a lot of different ways of doing it. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this. Disable on overlap. Yeah, I don't know. I would have to look it up. There's a way of turning off overlaps. It just doesn't overlap. It doesn't trigger anymore. Let me come back to this because I'll show you a way of doing it with variables, and variables are very important in programming. But let me just do fog first. So let me switch back. Okay. So Visual Studio. Thanks. There's the source code. Don't care. All right. So let's do fog. Let's add a little fog to the world. So drag out an exponential height fog, that, and you can see not a whole lot of things happen, right? So Ada, what I did was I searched for fog over here.
Dragged it out.
Oh, you already dragged it off? Oh, you're so fast. Okay. All right. Did you guys all get the fog out at home? Students that are over 5th grade? I just spit coffee on myself.
I don't think we need to know that.
They didn't need to know that?
Yes.
Hey, can you grab me a napkin or something? Thanks.
Remember.
All right, so right now you're not seeing much fog, right? Like we pull that fog and like, it doesn't seem like there's much fog. Okay. So the reason for that is because the fog is not you have fog in the world already, actually. Maybe that's a problem. Wow, the fog is way down there. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Fog's max opacity. Let's go back up to here. All right. So the world comes with fog in it, and one of the limitations of Unreal Engine is, depending on what I vaguely remember, there might be a limit on how much fog you actually can have in a level. Let's see here. There we go. All right. So there is fog.
I have a question.
There we go. Yes, sir.
How come there's an option for cooking?
Hmm?
How come there's an option, like, you know, like the area where you look at physics? How come there's an option for cooking?
Yeah, it looks like this fog isn't doing anything. So cooking in this context means you're baking shadows into the map. So if you move this thing around, you see how the shadows move with it?
Mm-hmm.
it has to recalculate that every time you move, right? And that's actually really expensive. It has to take the sunlight and look at the outline of the shape here, and then project that onto the surface down here, and it actually can eat up your frames. And so what we do if something doesn't move, we bake the shadows into the map itself. So if we know that this thing doesn't move, we know the sun doesn't move, we know the floor doesn't move, we know exactly where the shadow is going to be, right? And so what you can do is go up to do this and build lighting, and then this is going to pre-calculate all the shadows and things like that, so you don't have to do that at runtime. Okay, so let's rewind on fog, and up here in the outliner, let's find the fog that's already in the map, and click on it. And when you click on it, you will see that there is options down here, details down here, and you can adjust the density of the fog. And just sit there and play with the different values until you get some fog that you like.
Oh, you can change the color of the fog.
Oh, yeah. Second fog. So you have two different layers of fog, which is kind of cool. Fog in scattering color. Doesn't seem like it did very much. Start distance 0, fog cutoff distance 100. So I'm just messing with the different values here. So you have the fog start 10 meters away. 1,000 is 1,000 centimeters, so it's 10 meters away. And so you can have nice clear stuff near you, and then things away from you get kind of foggy, so move away. If you don't see any fog, yours didn't start with a fog. If yours didn't start with a fog, then you need to drag out an exponential height fog into it. Scattering, texture, tint, directional scattering, volumetric fog. Okay. Okay, so if you drag it into your scene, you want to edit the fog density here, turn that up to 1, and that will give you some nice thick fog. For whatever reason, it defaults to like a really minor fog, level. Like it defaults to like a very mild fog, and so you have to play with these values. And like if you drag it left and right, you'll see it only goes between 0 and 0.05, which is oftentimes like really weak sauce fog, depending if it's volumetric or not. And so you can drag it up and down. Usually when you drag up and down, that kind of gives you an idea of what values are expected in the engine. Like you should expect values between 0 and 0.05. In this case though, if you want thick fog, like you need to go above 0.05. Okay? If you want to have actual like foggy day fog. Fog level of 10 is super thick, right?
How Fresno used to be.
Yeah, Fresno, yeah. And so I want you guys just right now just playing with it, just scroll up and down. One thing I do want you to try out is volumetric fog. Volumetric fog is kind of like realistic fog. That kind of behaves like there's actual moisture in the air and stuff like that. Whereas the exponential height fog just does a calculation based on how far something is away, that's how much fog it gets. What's the matter, girl?
Can't really find it.
You don't see volumetric fog? Disco fog.
Okay. It's called disco fog.
Look, look at my screen.
Oh my. Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, how do you do it again?
This is called Fresno Summer right here. This is Fresno in August. This is the fog color.
That's not Fresno in August.
No?
No. Yeah, that's more like it.
Okay.
Wait. It's more like that. Something like that. Just looks disgusting. The moon's orange.
Yeah. Can't see the sky. Yeah, little oranger, I think. There you go. Yeah, there you go. That's Fresno. Okay.
On a bad case.
Yeah, and there's 100 fires burning this year in Nevada. Okay. Yeah, it's
Alaska calls having 100 fires in the whole entire state bad. Look at Fresno.
okay. So yeah, all these kinds of things are just things to play with, right? If you go to the directional light here, which I'm going to rename. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to leave it as the default name so you guys can find it. I usually rename it to be the sun, right?
Why are you making it look so disgusting?
It's Fresno, dude. Trying to be realistic here.
Really? Realistic in what place? The Bahamas, China, America, Fresno,
Collision, light shift.
New Zealand.
Try to see. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see this, but you see how the sun is actually lighting the fog here? You see the fog here is darker? Maybe if I rotate this a little bit. When you have volumetric fog, can you see the... Yeah, there. Do you see that? How like the fog itself is collecting light from the sun and re-radiating it back out? It's a neat effect. So, you can you have to turn on the bloom on the sun, and then there's light shafts.
How do you bring up the colors again?
For the fog. It is under. There you go. So if we go over to our fog. So if we turn off volumetric fog, you'll see that stops working, right? So volumetric fog is just beautiful. You get these neat light shafts, and the lighting looks really nice and beautiful. The albedo. Albedo means color.
It does not look nice thanks to you making the air quality really bad.
Okay, I'll make it mystical and magical and whatever.
That doesn't help.
No? I'll just...
Okay,
how about that?
good enough.
Bloody?
Good enough. Where is it?
Okay.
Where's the coloring?
So, yeah,
Where's
getting...
the coloring?
It's under albedo.
Where's albedo?
So, under volumetric fog. So you want to turn volumetric fog on.
I don't know where in the world is volumetric fog.
So did you click on the fog?
Yeah, I'm on the fog right now.
Then scroll down. Volumetric fog is near the bottom.
I'm just gonna double check.
Yeah, sandstorm levels would be a great way of doing that. And so there's an interaction between volumetric fog and the sun. And so you have to kind of click back and forth between your fog in the world and the sun in the world, which is called directional lighting. And the bloom is like oblivion levels of bloom here.
Yeah, Oblivion does not have good air quality. Where's the thickness level? Where's this thickness? Oh,
Just like that. So there's all sorts of interactions with the clouds, with the fog, with
Like different thickness.
let's see, let's reduce the. I'm going to reduce the density. Yeah, it's got secondary fog. There we go. So a little bit of haze in the sky right now. Let's see, secondary fog
That is well a little
turned
bit.
off. Bloom creates that weird shimmering effect. Let's see, 0.01. There we go. I'm just having fun here. Just go back to the sun.
Daddy, look, the block's moving weird. The block's moving. Oh, come on.
So now the sun's back up in the sky. It's not sunset anymore, so it's not yellowish anymore. But there's just a little bit of fog here in the level, and then that adds kind of a nice feel to a game. In most places on Earth, there's a little bit of particulate matter in the sky. Did you take ray tracing? Yeah. So fog or air pollution causes the sunlight to scatter as it goes through it. You very rarely have like the very harsh shadows and just pure sunlight, like on the moon maybe. Like if you're walking around on the moon, there's like no, like it's just like you get very crisp shadows and there's just no scattering. If you do that in a video game, though, it looks very artificial, and so it's usually a good idea to have some level of fog, just to simulate the light kind of coming into normal human air and kind of bouncing around a little bit and stuff like that. And you don't have to crank it up all the way like I had it before, but there is fog in the level right now, and there's like very, like I don't even think it'll come through on the streaming, but there's like very mild sun, you know, like
Yo, like that. That's like what happens when like a cloud covers the sun.
yeah, you can see the fog over here, but like it just adds, it just softens everything and makes it look nice. And you know, in Fresno we have lots of air pollution, and so we get these beautiful sunsets and things like that as a result of LA. Okay, Rayleigh scattering. Yeah. Your level is very blue, so you can adjust the color of your fog if you want. You can adjust the color of the sun if you want. So if you come over to Le Fog, turn on volumetric. Volumetric's like, if you want it to look nice, volumetric is kind of where it's at. It does have a frame rate penalty, but I just love the look of volumetric fog. So I always tick that, and then you can just play with these things. This affects the color. Okay, so that's my little thing on fog. Fog's max opacity. Kind of cool. What are you doing, girl?
I'm trying to raise my hand.
Okay, question?
What time does class start?
Class starts at 12 and it ends at 3:30.
Oh.
All right, so we've got. Okay, so let's go back to programming. I just like fog, so I want to talk about fog a little bit. Any questions about it? There's just a lot of variables to play with, and it's just the kind of thing that you're going to need to just kind of, mess around with a little bit. For your lab time today, you're going to have to make a misty village morning. Okay. You might need to enable ray tracing for fog. You don't have to. Volumetric fog works just fine without ray tracing on.
You want us to make a misty village morning?
Yes, you must make a misty village morning.
Do we have to make a village?
You just have to make a house with some fog in it. Okay. That is going to be your lab time starting in a little bit. A house with fog, yeah. maybe trees. I don't know. Whatever. Just make something pretty. Your fog is very thick. That's fine. Okay, so let's hop back into learning to program. Okay, so let's go back into our play music on ramp walk up, or whatever you call it, thing. And we want to make it so that it only plays the sound once. And like I said, there's a lot of different ways of doing it. You can disable collision. You can, delete the actor after. Maybe here. This would be a good place to do it. All right. So after you leave, you just destroy the whole thing, and then that should actually work. Let's see here. Look at that beautiful fog. It's nice. Okay. Monster music's playing. It stops. Okay, let's see if it'll trigger a second time. Nope, it's gone. So, yeah, that's how you do it. So, well, that's a way of doing it. There's lots of ways to do it. In Unreal Engine, there's usually 3 or 4 different major ways of doing the same thing. So what I did here was when you left the trigger zone, it just deleted the entire trigger zone. So what does destroy actor mean? Destroy actor removes something from the world. So it deletes something out of existence from the world. And so in this case, it deletes the box trigger. The box trigger goes away, and it never comes back. So it'll play once. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand this? So if you want the thing to play one time, that's probably the simplest way of doing it. But I'm going to show you how to do it also with variables, because variables are very important in programming. Okay. So that, let's just set this aside for now. That's how I would actually do it. But let's talk about variables. College people, you've all had algebra. High school people, you've had like algebra, X and Y and variables and Cartesian coordinates and stuff like that. You guys are all hip to the jam of algebra. Okay. Ada? Do you know what the Little Mermaid wears?
What?
An algae bra? No? Okay, sorry. All right. We were playing Little Mermaid earlier. Okay, anyway. So, that joke was told to me by my algebra teacher, so it's okay. 10 out of 10 dad joke, yes, thank you. So,
Really?
let's do some variables. All right. How do you make a variable, first of all? So over here, you will see there is a tab called variables right here. Okay, and this, what are you doing? Okay, this variable here is going to have a list of all of the variables just within this blueprint. They're not shared between different blueprints. So if you make multiple copies of the Matsuri trigger box, they each have their own copy of the variable. Okay, video games are all trig. Yeah, there's a huge amount of trig and linear algebra that go into video game making. 5 times 5 equals 25. Inertia is a property of matter. Okay, so we're going to make a new variable. And you can do so by clicking the little plus icon right there. And this variable is going to be called, I don't know, triggered.
I'm going to call it pi.
You're going to call it pi? Don't call it pi.
No, pi.
Oh, hi. You do that. And we're going to make this an integer. Okay, so integers are whole numbers. 2.1 is not an integer, 2 is an integer, 0 is an integer, -1 is an integer. So integers are whole numbers. Okay, so no decimals or fractions, things like that. Okay. Well, I guess 2 over 1 is an integer. Okay, so I am making this variable here named triggered, and if you want it to appear over here, you have to compile the blueprint, it'll tell you. So hit compile. And over here you can see by default it defaults to 0. Which is probably what you'd expect, right? Most variables will default to 0 when created, but you can change the default value here if you want. So what we want to do is we want to track how many times it's triggered this box. So for the music it doesn't really make sense, but maybe for like the explosion. Like maybe every time you walk in there it explodes, but after like 5 times you're like, all right, enough. It's enough. Right? So we can have this trigger happen 5 times. That's our goal. So we got a variable here called triggered, and banned for bad jokes. Okay, so how do you get a variable into your code? Well, the easiest way of doing it is actually to drag it out like this. So if you just click on the variable, Ada, do you see this? If you click on the variable and just drag it out, you can get the value of the variable. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add 1 to it.
Is this get hit trigger or set hit trigger?
We are going to get the value.
Get hit trigger?
We're going to get the value of triggered, and we are going to increment it.
We're going to press get.
You press get, yes. We're going to get the value. We're going to add 1, and we're going to save the value. So there's other ways of doing it, but the easiest way is after you've put your variable into the world, drag out from it, and search for increment. Or just plus plus is the easy way. You can't spell increment. So type plus plus. Yep.
No, there's 2 increments.
Increment int.
Okay.
And then what this will do is every time we walk over the trigger box, it's going to add 1 to triggered. And then, of course, we are going to try printing its value just to make sure everything works. Okay? So after the increment, do a print string.
Okay.
And what we want to do is print not hello, not you've entered the trigger zone, but we want to print the value of triggered. Now, you might see here that triggered is this kind of greenish with a little bit of blue color here.
Mine is red.
That's a Boolean. You need to change the type of it. So right down here, you need to, when you create a variable, it defaults to Boolean. You need to change the type to integer.
Oh, okay.
And then you'll get this nice bluish green color, kind of a mint color.
Okay,
It-
it's integer now.
Okay.
Gonna delete the, what? Can't. Okay. There we go.
Okay. So you might notice that the string here is like this magenta color, and triggered is this like mint color. So normally you can't do what I'm about to do here. You can't convert a, if you have a pin of one color, you can't connect it to a pin of another color. But sometimes Unreal Engine will know how to do it for you. And so if you drag from triggered over to the print string, you'll see it puts up a little message saying, we're about to convert this from an integer to a string for you. And it actually adds this little conversion node for you. And it will convert an integer into a string. So if the integer is 5, it'll become the string 5, and it will print it. Okay, so what is this going to look like when we run it? We run it. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. Okay. So this is how variables work in Unreal Engine. You make a variable, and you can drag it out, you can get its value, and you can set its value. So if you set its value, it looks like this. If you get its value, it looks like this. And the increment both gets and sets kind of at the same time. So once I'm happy that this is working, which it is, then all I need to do is add intelligence to my program. Okay? So what I need to do is say, before I play the explosion sound, I need to check, what's the value of triggered? If the value of triggered is less than 5, go ahead and play the explosion sound. If the value is 5 and up, then don't. Okay? And so here is the most important thing you're going to learn today, which is the if statement. Okay. This is where all intelligence in video games comes from. All right. So I'm going to make a little bit of room over here. I'm going to alt-click this here. And what I want to put in here is a branch. Okay, the branch is going to check. It's going to get the value of triggered, do a comparison, and if the value is less than 5, it'll go ahead and play the sound. If it doesn't, then nothing happens. Are you guys ready for this? Ada, you ready? We're going to add some intelligence. So if we've triggered the explosion sound less than 5 times, it'll proceed. If not, it'll do nothing. Ready? All right. So drag this out and type if, and that'll give you a branch node. Or you can type branch if you want, but if is less typing. What's up?
Where's branch node?
You got this?
Yeah, I clicked the wrong thing.
You just search for if. It'll. How do you find the variable?
A lot of ifs. There's
So
a lot of ifs.
what we want to do is we want to say if the condition is true, we're going to go ahead and play the explosion sound and increment triggered. If it's false, we're going to do absolutely nothing.
Branch?
Or maybe if it's false, we can destroy ourselves. If it's false, we're going to blow ourselves up.
What?
Okay, so we're about to mess with this thing here, but basically, this is, in a second, we're going to mess with this. So basically, this is going to check how many times we've been triggered. If we've been triggered less than 5 times, then it plays the sound and increments triggered. If we've been played 5 or more times, then we destroy ourselves. Clean up. So how do you find the variable? Well, you just drag it over like this. So drag it over, and we're going to get triggered.
False. Destroy actor.
Mm-hmm. So true connects to spawn sound, and false connects to destroy actor. And so what this is going to do is, just 1 second when we're all done, basically we're making the code work 5 times. And then after that, it cleans itself up, deletes itself from the world. Okay, so how do we say is triggered less than 5? You type less than. Okay.
Wait, so what if it's true?
If it's true, it's going to connect over to spawn sound 2D. If it's false, it connects to destroy actor.
Okay. Okay, maybe you're going way too fast.
I do go too fast at times. So if I go too fast, you have to tell me. So,
Condition.
mhm.
Less than trigger.
So what I did was I dragged out from triggered, typed the less than key, chose less, changed the value here to 5, and then the result of that is going to be true or false, and that connects into here.
Less than.
So if triggered is less than 5, it's going to play a sound and increment itself. If triggered is 5 or more, then it will destroy itself.
Get your trigger or subject trigger?
Huh?
Get your trigger or subject?
Get triggered. We're going to get the value of triggered. We're going to see if it's less than 5. If it's less than 5, it plays a sound and increments triggered. Otherwise, it removes itself from existence. Any questions out in Discord land? Did you get it to work, Ada?
I have no idea what supposed to do.
What's that?
I think I did it.
Let me take a look. You need to clean up the... Man, that's a giant mess, girl.
No, it isn't.
Oh my gosh. Everything's on top of each other.
well, I had the auto. I selected all of them, pressed Q, and this is what happened.
Oh Lord.
Even the computer does not agree with.
Yeah, just drag. Yeah, you don't want to select all. If you select all of them and hit Q, it'll do that. It'll put them all on the same line. So you have to kind of select the ones you want horizontally aligned and hit Q, and the ones you want vertically aligned. What's the shortcut for that again? Shift A. Shift A, and they vertically align. Q, and they horizontally align. Shift A. Yep. Okay. How to delete a node. Did you do a reroute node? If you double click on a wire, let's see if I can get on this. If you double click on a wire, you can create a reroute node, which just allows you to move the wires around a little bit. But you just delete it. You're getting runtime errors when you try to display a string. Okay. Did you screenshot it for me, Sims? I'll take a look. Okay, so let's see if this works. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is. Blueprint runtime error. Attempted to access audio component 4 via property. Ah, yeah. It already destroyed itself. That's true.
Are you sure?
Let's get rid of the destroy
It
active.
has unresolved compiler errors.
Okay.
This one has unresolved compiler errors.
Let me see.
On it says that.
Music player failed to compile. Oh, it's because your increment isn't hooked up anymore.
Hmm?
Your increment isn't hooked up.
What's my increment?
That's the part that adds 1 to the variable. So the variable, and then try compiling now. I can't see.
Compile. Just press compile.
There you go.
Press save.
Okay. Yeah, your thing's all spaghetti right now. You should try to organize it a little bit.
Your thing is always spaghetti.
My thing's always spaghetti?
Yes.
Yeah, the reason why that happened is because we...
I don't know what I'm supposed to expect.
You don't know what to expect? What?
Yeah.
And
I don't know what
good. Nice.
And then this always pops up. Daddy?
Hmm?
This always pops up.
Yeah, I'm getting the same thing. Yeah.
When does lab time start?
Huh?
When does lab time start?
Server logged in, plan editor, start time.
Daddy, when does lab time start?
20 minutes. Audio expense 4 is... let's see here. Yeah. Right. Okay. So we need to add an equivalent. Basically, what's happening is that when we're essentially turning off begin overlap, but we're not turning off end overlap. So it's trying to stop something that doesn't exist. So we need to add a branch in here as well, and only do the stop if that's valid. Okay, so yeah, no, you're fine, girl. You're right where I was. So basically, I'm adding a branch in here as well. So it's not going to try stopping an audio file that doesn't exist. That's why it was yelling at us. So if we do this, then we should be good to go. Like I said, the easier way of doing all of this would just be to destroy yourself, you know. But this I'm trying to teach you guys how to do intelligence. So this is how we do intelligence. Every time we begin overlapping, we increment triggered by 1, and once we hit 5, we just stop. And with these tools, basically you can kind of do anything. You can read a variable, you can set a variable. You can add two numbers together. So if you have a variable, you can add, I don't know, 20 to it or something. Do something with it. But you can read, add, set, check if it's greater or smaller. And then the actual meat of the program is this stuff, right? Like do something in the world. Play a sound, create a projectile, trigger a door opening, that kind of stuff. This is basically what we're going to be doing all semester. Is we're going to be programming games, and you can see that all of this stuff, like the renderer and rendering triangles and all, you don't have to worry about any of that. You just have to focus on programming the game itself, and that's really nice. You can just focus on just a little bit of the game. 2, 3, 4, 5, and there we go, and no errors this time. You can just focus on just that little bit of the game, right? Just we're creating an area that when you walk into it, it plays a sound, but it plays the sound no more than 5 times. And you just focus on that. You don't have to worry about all the rest of everything, all the C++, all that stuff. No, don't have to worry about it. Okay. So, Ada, what you got?
So you do I honestly don't know what I'm supposed to expect because I have a speaker. I think I might have deleted it.
Do you delete the speaker in the world?
I don't know.
Okay. All right, I'll help you during lab time. Okay. We need to get that. It's really hard to figure out what's going on, Ada, when your code looks like this. it's very hard to sort everything out. So I'll help you. I'll help you get all that cleaned up. So I think that's good for today for the. Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's good for today for the 50A people. Your homework assignment, you guys got till 3:30 to do it. If you don't get it done by 3:30, you do it at home, although you are at home. Is to make a misty mountain village. Okay, so make a little cabin, and this is kind of like what we were doing yesterday with the snowman, right? So drag a little cube and turn it into walls. You know what I mean? Make a little cabin, you know what I mean? Build a little cabin, add some fog, add some trees, You guys with me on this? There is door frames, I think, in here. So there's actually a little door frame you can add. That's really big. You guys understand? So, just build a little cabin in the woods, little fog, little trees. Maybe add some lighting. I should probably show that. So if you go to the lighting tab here, you can see there's a lot of different kinds of light. So, Ada, you ready to learn how to add lights to a world? You know how to do it.
I know how to add
You did all sorts of lights in laser zombies. So if you drag out a point light, that creates a little light bulb. And you just kind of move these things around. Add a little light to the inside. That's kind of bright, so you can
I can't find the right branch.
come in here and turn the brightness down a little bit. Add some lights. You can't find the lights, Ada?
No, I can't find the right branch. I know.
That looks kind of garbage. Yep. You guys with me? So you can drag out some lights, and if the fog's really thick, then it's actually going to look really beautiful. So let's see here, fog density. So these lights actually, you see that with a volumetric fog? Like they'll actually have like a physical presence in the world, which is pretty cool. That's a really small house. It's like a dog house.
You should add some materials to it.
If you want to make multiple houses, how do you copy an entire house? So yeah, you can click. I'm holding down shift, click, shift, click, shift, click. If you shift click everything, you can right click them and go to group, Control G, and then all of them are going to move together. And then if you alt drag, you get two houses. Yay. So if you want to group things up, yeah, Shift G, Control G groups them, and then you can ungroup with Shift G, and then all those things will move together. You guys understand? Pin? Does that make sense? So just shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click. Get them all selected, Control G, and then everything kind of moves together. And then if you ever need to break them apart, ungroup, and you can tweak it or whatever. Slightly too small for the human habitation. But that's the idea. That's your homework. Okay? So I did lights really fast. We'll have a whole lecture on lights at some point. But you guys are pretty smart, so you can just drag out a point light, and then you can adjust the color and make it nice and warm and inviting. Kind of thing. It's like the soft white, light bulbs or something. Very warm and inviting and cozy. How to edit a group? You have to ungroup it and then edit it and then regroup it. So Shift G ungroups, Control G groups. No one likes to show off. That does look good, Tim. That does look good. Okay.
Ooh, actually it's pretty good.
Yeah. Let's put it up on the stream. There you go. Yeah.
Why are you burning down bushes?
It's a religious metaphor, I think. Okay. So you guys cool? Good to go? Make some houses, maybe make some trees, foliage, fog, lights. 20 gigs worth of dependencies a moment. Can you help me with the fog really quick? Yeah. What's the... So like I said, if you already have a fog on your level, adding another fog oftentimes just doesn't seem to work. I think there's a limitation of some sort in the engine. I wasn't going for religion. The bush was the only flammable thing. Fair enough. Okay. But yeah, if the fog just isn't showing, in part it's because the strength oftentimes is just very low on the fog by default. So trying to set fog density up to 1 should work pretty good. Jimmy and student VC to complain about GitHub, slow delta process, use 50. Yeah, that looks good. I like that. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording now. I'll help some of you with your questions, and then we'll switch over to 50B mode in a second. So everybody that's working on it, hop over into the student VC, and you can talk with each other. I'm going to join in a second. I'm going to see what is going on with your fog. All right. So 58 people. See you tomorrow. And it looks like we're going to be online for the rest of the week, and then we'll be back in person on Monday, and we get to see the new lab computers and stuff. Cool. All right. See you guys.